Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading property experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, and Ben Kingsley, Chair of Property Investment Professionals of Australia, and the 2014 and 2015 Property Investment Advisor of the Year.
Alright folks, you're on the Property Couch, your insider's guide to property investing, and on the couch, as he is every week, is Ben Kingsley. Hello mate.
G'day mate, how are you?
Very good, very good. Mate, I'm probably not really used to this intro yet. You know how I used to say
the whole lot.
Now I've got to get used to a new one. So
it's because we've got a great intro man, who's Jason, who's put our intro together, so he's just
got
quality.
dulcet tones, hasn't he?
Quality.
Hey mate, I think we should probably give a warning to our listeners. We've gone the whole of March without talking about footy, but I don't know if we can hold the damn wall back much. Next week we're probably going to have to start talking about...
Well, now we've seen a couple of games out, we can sort of see who's setting the early form.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll wait and see. But we're into it.
But we'll let our listeners know that we are conscious of the fact that...
this is your last chance to be footy free.
The more that we talk about footy, the less time we've got for your sign-off at the end. So we've got to get the balance
perfect
right.
for that.
We've got to get the balance right. So stick around for Ben's sign-off, because he just gave me this look of, where's my sheet of paper?
Yeah, where is it? Good. I had an idea, but I forgot my phone. So we'll have to do that another time.
Yeah, we will do that another time. Hey, Ben, do you know how we've spent 50-odd weeks of helping people build frameworks so they can make better decisions around property?
Over a year. Yep.
That was what you'd say, is make sure they don't make dumb decisions.
Mm-hmm.
As people start to implement it and start to build a portfolio, the headwinds are coming.
Yeah.
And by that I mean the criticism or the critiques or the well-meaning advice or the opinions that people have are going to inevitably come to people who are trying to get ahead.
The naysayers, all of the people who zap your energy, take your mojo away from you. So yes. I wanted to talk about them today.
Yeah, because there's three types of people, isn't there? The ones who energise you, the ones who are neutral, and the ones who take away energy. So you've really got to try and eliminate the ones that take out the energy, or just pick your discussion points of who you're going to chat about. Because I remember when I first started getting involved in property investment in 1998, not many people were talking about it. Jan Summers was up on the whiteboard, the Ray Martin show, there was a couple of books around which I consumed, but it wasn't the mainstream barbecue topic that it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So I always found a way, one of the principles for me was to surround myself with like-minded people, and I'm fully of the view that you are the product or the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yep.
And mate, I'm happy to say...
Sorry for dragging down the average.
Mate, well, the thing is that you're a real contradiction, because you would normally, I've said this before, Collingwood supporter don't like cricket, would really drag that down. But
Mate, on my tooth nearly fell out on a false teeth. I got it back in, sorry.
See, that's my point exactly. But no, I'm actually really happy with the 5 people that I spend the most time around. I think they're people that challenge me, they're people that encourage me to grow, and they're people, particularly you, challenge me to think about things in different ways. So we thought today we might just roof it.
Yep.
Freestyle it. And talk about some of the headwinds we think that investors are going to face, and some of the experiences that we faced ourselves.
Yeah, and also, let's get into some attitudes in terms of, attitude is everything. There's no doubt about that, and like what you were saying there, I mean, in terms of where do I get my motivation from to be the best that I can be, well, it comes from a variety of sources, obviously books I read, but also podcasts I listen to, and so there's some great podcasts out there. So the Tim Ferriss show, I really am interested to see how these, he interviews some amazing people, thought leaders around the world in their specialisation, and just driven people to get the best out of life they can be. So, they've got that trademark that I'm interested in understanding. Then, there's the $1 Million Agent, Tom Panos and John McGrath. That's an interesting real estate show. It's obviously designed for real estate agents, but I just love hearing John and Tom speak. They're very professional. They know their stuff, and they're also listening to other podcasts. James Ultra Show, all those types of things. The Zig Ziglar Show. There's just some really good podcasts out there that I think people should get their headspace into, because it's quite motivating, and it will take you from potential environments or feelings that you have into a positive mindset.
Man, I think that you've hit the nail on the head. Back in the days, I started listening to cassette tapes in my little Mazda 323 that had the university-style air conditioning, which meant that I had to go 60 k's an hour down the freeway with the windows down.
Well, that was interesting from the 180B that, everyone used to talk about the old Datsun 180B.
Mate, the Datsun 180B I always thought had the fine blend between executive and sports. So I think everyone should have had an experience with the Datsun 180B.
Sorry for all those people who
Gen Y listeners what are they talking about?
What are you on about?
Mate, they just wind your own windows up. They wouldn't understand. So Zig Ziglar was the first one. I think regular listeners for me would know that he's one of my favourites.
Yep.
But the two that have stood the test of time for me is Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn.
Yep.
And Jim Rohn's voice is just so easy to listen to.
Yeah.
But the one that he says all the time is success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day. And
smart.
It's easy to think successful people do. You're a successful person. I know you're going to be humble, but you're a successful person. But you do that. You do a few simple disciplines and you practice it every day.
I work hard.
Mate,
to be like that, it doesn't come easy. It's not.
But you see the good in everyone.
Yeah,
that's one of your strengths, and that's probably one of the things that people don't do easily is to always look for the positive. And how that relates to property investing is the amount of times that you see people just say property won't work because, and rather than saying it probably will work because, and these are the things. Robert Kiyosaki said that risk is a product of knowledge. So he said, if I was to go and buy an apartment block with 8 apartments in it, organise the finance, to me that's not very risky because my level of knowledge is to the point where there's no surprises for me.
Yeah.
Versus a first-time investor who would come along and say, 8 apartments, are you serious? Because their level of knowledge isn't where his is, so therefore their risk scale is so much higher.
Oh, I think it's a great point. And just on that one, years ago when I was writing all my first newsletters, I used to sign off with knowledge is empowering if you act on it. So it's all well and good to have a level of knowledge, but if you don't actually move on that information, you're not going to get anywhere further. So that's probably what I've been, sort of in my years when I was building up my property investment knowledge in my early 20s, I was just hungry for information and trying to, what was driving me was to try and be the best researcher and investment selector I could be in residential property, and that's sort of part of the journey for me.
Mate, it'd be good to tell the listeners. Mate, I've seen your folders of.
What I used to do.
What did you used to do? It's actually mind blowing what you used to do.
So when I was living in Sydney, and if I had a spare weekend, I would normally inspect between 25 and 40 properties in a weekend, open for inspections.
That's enormous.
I was quick, I was in and out in 10 minutes. I'd still try and speak to the agent. And then I would also, that was back in the day, just before the internet was sort of thriving. So all of the brochures and all of the weekly publications, so I remember the Sydney Weekly and Wentworth Weekly and all those things, I'd collect all of that. I would cut out all the properties of interest to me. I'd put them into a large folder and I would watch their results. So, I'd get in the paper on the weekends, I'd ring the agent up, I'd see how it sold, how it went. Also design styles, layouts. I would attend in-room auctions, hundreds of them. If I haven't been to over probably 1,500 to 2,000 auctions, I'd be surprised. And if I haven't walked through, I reckon it would probably be now 5 to 10,000. I wouldn't roughly know, but 10,000 open homes, I reckon I've been through. And that was an intense period from probably the early 20s through to about 35. And then that's when, my first... that was my apprenticeship in a sense. There was literally hundreds of thousands of hours of that type. Well, that's probably an exaggeration, but 100,000 hours of information in terms of what I was trying to gather. And then the advent of the internet, geospatial technology, Google Maps. Oh God, when Google Earth first landed, I was in awe. I'm thinking, wow, what a time saver. I can now do all my research sitting at my desk do everything I need to do to sort of understand the area and get, what we talk about in terms of that funnel coming down into a work framework that I can then assess areas and make determinations on pockets of those areas and whether I want to go for it. And that's just watching 20 years of values also change over time as well.
I mean, that's unbelievable. The good news for our listeners is you don't need to do that, but it just gives you an idea of how fanatical Ben was at understanding his craft. My version of that was simply I would spend time with property investors all the time. I started when I was 23. I couldn't afford an investment property at the time, so I figured I grew up. My parents are great, but I grew up in the conditioning that I was probably going to work for someone else, and I wanted to break that conditioning. And the only way that I felt that I could do that is I used to jump in the car and dream build and drive around the suburbs that I wanted to live in. And I used to always spend time with people who were talking about the topic, because by osmosis, my mindset was going to default into that. And I think I would have just consumed so many podcasts if they were around.
Tapes. We used to buy the tapes.
It was the cassette tapes. And I used to come over from America. It was Zig Ziglar had to be a winner, and he told this story about a crocodile in a pool.
Then the DVD series.
And he goes, you need to check up from the neck up. And then he talked to people about, he had this positive attitude on the phone. He goes, if you don't speak up, I'm going to hang up. So he's a successful guy who's had enormous positive mental attitude. But Automobile University is one of his.
Oh, yeah.
And that was back in the days when podcasts weren't around. Yeah. And he was saying, you can get a diploma or a bachelor's degree just in the time that you're driving your car. Yeah. Just keep putting tapes in and listen. Yeah. Brian Tracy, all those sorts of things.
Seth Gooden, he actually complimented Zig as being the founder of all that Tim Ferriss and they do. Now, Seth Gooden's one of the world's best relationship marketers.
Purple Cow?
Yeah, Purple Cow. I love reading all his stuff, and I listen to he's got a podcast called The Startup School. Man, if I haven't listened to some of those episodes 3 or 4 times just to sort of understand the psychology of the consumer. And because at the end of the day, when you're advising someone, it's a trusted role. And so you're sitting across the table, you've got to relate to them. But the best way to relate to them is honesty and integrity. And that is also about saying to them, it's not a good position you're in. This is not going where it needs to go, as well as complimenting them on the things they do. And I refer to it as there's some high-fiving that I'm going to give you, and then there's some kicks in the backside that I'm all... And I think once I've got that and people understand that, they know that it's not just going to be, giving them praise. We've got this is work. We have to get this to a position to get you to the next stage of your life. And we're in the business of changing people's lives, but we're also in the business of playing with their entire wealth base in most cases. So we get it wrong, it's hell to pay. So from that point of view, that's why we do it. Which is the reason why, sorry mate, I was just going to say, I want to talk about successful and unsuccessful people in a way. I want to sort of, because you come across these really successful people, and we should be learning from them. Because what I get motivated by John McGrath when he talks, because he's so great, but he gets motivated by other people who get motivated by the same type of people in that type of community. So they're the breakout people, they're the thought leaders, they're the ones who are helping people like me be a better me, and I think that's really important. And there was some we've sort of got a list here, and anyone can sort of Google this, what do successful people do and what do unsuccessful people do. So I thought it's just really good that there's negative people in the world and there's positive people in the world. So the first one is, I do think absolutely that successful people complement others. They're actually in a headspace where they're engaged in the world, and they just they're not talking down to people. They're not narcissistic. They're just doing the right thing. And I was fortunate enough over Christmas, just after Christmas, to spend some time with Trevor Hendy. And for those of you who don't know, Trevor Hendy is an elite Australian athlete. He was an Ironman. He was just the best in the world at what he did, and he's gone off to do some basically some coaching and professional development stuff, and to have some time with him. And I just love what he said he said a couple of really great things, but the first one that he said is winning on all levels. And for me, that's about complimenting others, but it's also about not, winner takes all, everyone else has to lose for me to win. It's just basically in all levels of your life is just a really great statement, and I got a lot from that.
Well, that's brilliant, and it makes me think about, I can't remember who said it, but you've got to get the balance in life. It's not all about money. You've got to have your relationships, you've got to have health, you've got to have it all. But the one that wrote home to me was, we're all sort of desperate to, as a context of property investing, we're desperate to build this material store of, war chest.
Yep.
But you've never seen a hearse tow a trailer when you're at a funeral.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go with you. So the point is, you've got to make sure that you get the balance in life. And how many times have we seen people who don't get that balance right? They're focused 100% on property, do whatever it takes to get wealth, and then when they get there, they've got no one to play golf with because they've burned everyone along the way.
Yeah, again, successful people give credit to others. They actually celebrate their victories as well. They're human enough and they're balanced enough to sort of say, that's a great job, well done, as opposed to, I want to be that person. They're actually already that person. They're just in the zone of being able to help people, as opposed to, those people who, take all the credit for the victories. Oh, that was me. I'll never forget one of the people who won an award in our business very early on in the piece, got up there and it was I. And there was a team of people around that particular person who made that happen. And I thought, that's just unfair. And it's, it's unsophisticated and rude in a sense. So that's the type of thing for me that is, we can't do what we do without an amazing team of people behind us. And everything that we've got is because they're helping us fulfill that in changing people's lives.
Tony Lockett didn't kick all of his goals on his own, did he?
No, he didn't take the ruck, didn't run the ball down the
foot. Didn't do the hard yards in and under. Very, very good. I always think that in terms of the conversations and the language that successful people have, it's a, no disrespect, but it's just a framework. But simple people talk about people. Simple minds talk about people.
Yeah.
Average minds talk about events, and great minds talk about ideas. So the great minds are trying to, the old iron sharpens iron. What can I get from you that can help me amplify just this continual tennis ball movement across the discussion point, so that 1 and 1 is 11, as we always say.
Yeah, and I mean, the contradiction to that is, what about all those people who just go through life, just treading water, watching mind-numbing TV, live vicariously through...
Some TV isn't mind-numbing.
Really? Yeah. Oh, no, helping people buy property is not having a good location, Australia. But I just think, how are these people, are they being the best they can be of themselves, watching others on these stage-managed reality programs?
Yeah.
Doesn't quite make sense to me. And that's that. Whereas the great people aren't necessarily doing that. They are creating these ideas. They're embracing change. They're really getting to what is important to them about making a difference. And I've said to the team here is that when we're building out Empower Wealth, what we've been doing is basically changing lives. And when we come to the end of our careers, the fulfillment in making a difference in those people's lives, not only for the financial gain that we hope that they will make, but how that relates to their personal goals and and life in general. Because as you said, Steve Jobs couldn't take his billions with him.
No.
So but he's left a legacy. He's left his fingerprint. Now that was potentially also, if you read some of his bio, that his family suffered through that because he saw his calling as being something bigger than just his own backyard. But I think probably as he got sicker, he probably realised that there was a priceless loss in not being involved in his family. And I can be guilty of that too personally, in terms of trying to manage my home commitments with the 80 hours a week that I work.
Yeah, well, you've got a part-time job, have you?
Yeah.
Very good. I think successful people are always looking to put good stuff into their mind, whether it's for reading a book regularly, obviously like ours with podcasts.
Yep.
But I think For me, we're all busy. I've got 2 younger children at the moment. We're going through some health stuff, so I've got some routines. And before I go to bed every night, I put a big glass of water there, so that when the alarm goes off in the morning and I don't want to wake up, I've got a prompt or a routine that I go through. I get up, I grab the glass of water, and I just finish it, and it just kickstarts my body. And the next thing I do is I tiptoe out so the kids don't wake up. And I put a podcast on in the morning. It's always a positive. It's not a technical podcast. It's always a positive mental attitude podcast.
Yep, great.
And I put it on so that whilst I'm doing some things in the morning that I don't really find inspiring, I've got some really positive words going to my mind. That
who's that? The listeners might want to know who it is mainly.
Tim Ferriss is because he's trying to distill world-class performers into their most basic things that they do.
Their habits.
And the morning routine thing for him is, I got it from him, let's be honest.
Meditation.
He goes, you've got so many credit points in the day for your decisions that you can make. And so don't burn any of that decision points. Say you've got 100. Don't burn the decision points thinking, what am I going to have for breakfast? What am I going to do first thing in the morning? He said the first hour of your day should be routine. So I get up and I do that. I've got this posture pole that I stretch my back on. There's a whole bunch of things that I do in the morning, and I do them religiously every day to kickstart my day. Because to be honest, routine sets me free with my personality type. Because if it was for me, I'd sort of wander around because the alarm goes off at 6 o'clock, and before I know it, the kids are up at 7, and I haven't even started breakfast. So again, a few simple disciplines practiced every day can be the difference. And people are thinking, what's this got to do with property investing? Because you've got to be rock solid in terms of your mindset, because headwinds will come. People are going to criticise you. If you get it wrong, they're going to be happy to tell you what you did wrong. But importantly, if you get it right, wait for them to try and kneecap you. Australia's the tall poppy syndrome of the world. And
that's probably, you hear successful actors, you hear about successful business. They had a clear plan. They had a view. They have a dream, but then they put that in writing. They have a written plan with goals, milestones, the things they're trying to achieve. Sporting teams do the same. Individual sports athletes tick off the workload that they have to do in terms of getting themselves to the peak mental and physical shape that they need to be. So why is it any different when it comes to wealth creation? The same principles apply, and that's why we drill in this sort of planning, and we put all these frameworks together to help people understand that it is a process. It's not an event. Just keep working through those. Bring the tools, learn the tactics and the strategies, and bring those into it. And for me, if you don't have that plan, if you don't have that short, medium, and long-term plan, you won't. You'll deviate. You won't be as efficient as you can potentially be to get to that end game. You still might get there, but you might arrive 10 years later. That, as opposed to those who don't do that, just they're fluff. They fly around by the seat of their pants. What they do, they're not clear. There's no clarity. And then as they go through their midlife crisis, what they're about is like, well, what am I about? What's my purpose personally? As their maturity levels grow, it's like, have I had this life? Is this life for me? And that's the big challenge for them, because they're having an awakening moment, sort of saying, am I ready to take on the world? Am I fulfilling that distance? And for us in terms of our team here, it's exactly the same thing. When any one of our advisors is sitting in front of a client, it's really fulfilling to know that you're helping them. I remember very early on, it probably hit home to me when I was mortgage broking in the first couple of years, and I had a single mum with 3 kids, and she wanted to do a renovation on her house to put an extra living room out the back, and I was fortunate enough to be invited to the party at one of the birthday parties, and I walked into this new extension, and I helped get the money for that extension. And I could see everyone happy and being joyful. Like, now I get it. I sit down and do paperwork all day to process this, so this can happen. That's the the fruits of the labour, and that sort of said, okay, there's fulfilment in this, and that's when I started to get a thirst for trying to build out something that can fulfil as many people as possible.
Well, that's the anecdotal evidence of you get everything you want when you help enough people get what they want. They wanted the extension, they wanted the feeling and the family memories that were growing on that, and then ultimately you got what you need for the income. I think successful people have mentors, and early on I surrounded myself. I was like bee to honey to anyone who knew anything about what I was interested in, and I would meet them where they were at. If they go for a walk on a Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, I'd ask if I could go where you are, and ask you lots of questions. So for me, the mentor thing is huge, because Again, I've got wonderful parents. My dad was born in 1939 in the shadows of the Great Depression. His goals were to buy his own home, provide a secure existence for his family, and he did that very, very successfully. But when I started saying I wanted to leverage and buy investment properties, I rocked his world, because that wasn't the safe environment, and I don't know what it's like to grow up in the shadows of the Depression. I don't know what it's like to be around when then people are going off to war. I don't know what that feels like.
No.
So other than he just knew and he's done it exceptionally well. But when I started saying I wanted to buy investment properties, at first Dad was like, mate, don't go down that path. And the same-sex relationship with your parent is so powerful that I needed to surround myself with people who could encourage me and make sure that I knew that I was doing the right thing whilst being respectful of my dad's views.
Yeah, of course.
That mentorship stuff was just unbelievably critical. And I've had some great mentors, and I'm not ashamed to say that, when we first met, I was doing the same thing to you. Where can I meet you? Where can I get more information from you?
But that was mutual. I was learning a lot from you as well, mate.
But if it wasn't for that, you can get derailed easily. So again, for the context for our listeners on a property investment podcast, hopefully in some way, Ben, we can provide. We'd love to meet all of our listeners, and hopefully, if they at a show or.
And this is the way we can reach out to them,
correct.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I was fortunate enough that my dad never went into business, so I didn't have anyone to sort of mentor in the business side of things. So I had a bit of a natural entrepreneurial type thing. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I had a sort of clear purpose in terms of what I wanted to be. And so, Lindsay Johnson, if you're listening to this, it was a very successful manufacturing business in Melbourne, and I was part of a game fishing club, and we went fishing one time, and he I sort of was just fascinated by how he'd been so successful, and he just turned around to me and says, Ben, cream always comes to the top. And so he'd known me as a family friend for a long time, and he just said, and he just gave me the confidence. He just said, and you'll be cream. So, just keep
How
persisting.
encouraging is that?
It's just amazing. I mean, that set me on my pathway to where I wanted to get to, and it's still hard work, that you can't just, you don't land a success. I mean, you'll hear of a lot of people who have failed and then finally had their breakthrough in terms of that. So, but that was just nice to know, and I've passed that on a couple of times where a couple of people have reached out where things are getting a bit tough for them, and I know the quality of the person, the attitude of the person, the integrity of the person, and it's just like cream always comes to the top. Or when I see them getting a general manager's role or a career that they wanted to get, I just shoot them a little note, cream always comes to the top, and I just thought that's a legacy that I've been given to pass on to others, so it's really nice.
Paying it forward, very, very
yes.
good. Successful people just want others to succeed. I always think, do you remember when you're back at school, do you remember when you were doing your maths test and you sort of huddled over your paper so that the guy next door couldn't see what you're writing? Because I probably was one of the guys. But successful people don't, they're not in primary school anymore. They actually, when they're writing, they want everyone to see it because they've got the view that I don't want to keep the little that I've got. I actually want the ideas to continue to flow. So if that person's actually seeing that, that's going to then encourage me to work out what the next layer is.
Yeah.
What's the next layer? So we don't think we know it all. We do a podcast. We think we've got some frameworks and some ideas that we can share. But we're of the view, and I know I'm speaking on your behalf.
Oh yeah, I'm nodding.
That we want to know our subject so well that we can explain it so simply, and we don't think we're there, and we're continually fine tuning every single day.
Yeah, and we're learning every single day. We don't have, it's not a precise science property investment. It's a probability event. So we're trying to increase our probability of better results than loss, because there's going to be times where we might get it wrong. And so, and when we're playing with that particular person's money, that's dangerous, so we're just trying to limit the risk, limit the volatility, and improve the chances of a better return, So from that point of view, we will continually keep learning, and we'll accept that the world's changing, and successful people do that. They just basically know that the world's moving forward, and they accept that. So, they embrace that type of change. So it's really important that people who do that. And on the negative side, I want to bring up one negative one because it just drives me mad. And this is
And I'm not going to stop following Fremantle, all right? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'll tell you off air why I think Fremantle are still going to have some challenges. In terms of this sense of entitlement,
yes, I agree.
I just, there's people who whinge and carry on about the world owes them something, and they're the type of people who drag energy. And they're the type of people who, throughout your life, you're going to meet them on occasion, and you're gonna make a conscious decision whether you want to play ball with them, or not. Whether you want to move on to people who give you that positive energy. That, as you were saying before, they zap your energy, don't they? So this sense of entitlement that the world owes them a favour, or the government owes them a favour, or you were born in a very lucky country, but get on with the job. It's not just going to be handed to you on a platter. So just make sure, move away from that attitude if you think you've got it. And if you're around people that do have it, these people are negative people. They hold grudges. They do all these types of things. Move away from them. Get on to the positive side of people and go with people who want to see others succeed, who enjoy watching you, build what you're building. It's just important.
Agreed. If someone's seeing you're doing really well with property, get them to ask questions why. Don't run you down. Ask how can they do it? How can you encourage them to build a portfolio? We know that 73% of all investors stop at one, and if you're someone who's got two, that's the guy down the street with two investment properties. It's the person you want to chat to. You don't have to necessarily see someone on a podcast or a book, as long as they got
the person sitting next to you at work. I mean, last night I had two lovely couple in, really lovely. I think they got four, looking at their fifth investment property or fourth investment property. And, they were talking, and Melda was saying on the way out, she goes, there's a couple of people in the office asking me what we're doing. And I'm sure, come and have a chat with me. So again, a really positive person wanting to share, wanting to say, this is how we're doing. We're not saying it's the perfect way to do it, but they're asking for information, because if they can do it, why can't I do it? That's that sort of whole momentum in terms of helping others become what they want to become.
I think the message here for the listeners that we'd like to portray is, if you don't think that you can buy multiple properties because of some conditioning that you have, if you get enough knowledge, that will reduce the risk, and the idea of buying multiple properties will become something that you feel that you can do. So to buy 4 investment properties, you've got to buy number 1 first. And you buy number 1 first, you get used to it, and then you just buy number 2. So if we can take some of the mystery out of that and help with our podcast and give the frameworks to give you that confidence and that knowledge, which is great. I know that, Ben, we've raced to 30 minutes. We could talk about this all day. Probably a question for the listeners is this helpful, or would you rather just stick to the technical craft of property? We think that that the headwinds are going to come. You are going to cop some character assassinations at some point, so you've got to make sure your character is rock solid. So putting all of this information into your...
And they'll tell you that their strategy is better than yours, and because they're trying to sell themselves to you. Great people don't sell themselves to you. They just
encourage.
Good luck to you,
Just remember, at the end of the day, the currency is a $50 note or a $100 note. So your $50 note is no different to any other person's $50 note. So who cares if they've got properties that look better than yours and yours are more reliable and durable? Doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if you both end up with the same amount of money and the same outcome, their $50 is not better than your $50. So that's important to talk about. I know you want to sign off, Ben, but I just wanted to say to people...
No, go.
A couple of things for me that I would encourage. One, that I've learnt from other people, morning routine. I do that every day. I do it without fail. The first hour of my day is done without me thinking about it. I do a gratitude journal, Ben. I don't do it every day. I like to do it more, but I like to look for things that I'm thankful for, because there's lots of things to be negative about, and I don't want to do that. Third thing is I use Evernote every single day to control my life, because there's lots going in my mind, so I need to be able to write it down. We already know that I listen to heaps of podcasts. And the last thing I was going to say, if you haven't read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, which was written in the 40s, it's a must. Because that's going to make your character rock solid. That's when character assassinations attempts are happening, that's going to make you rock solid, and it's going to make you the person that people want to be around.
Replay that last 2 minutes of what Bryce just said. Bryce has taught me a lot about this stuff. in terms of helping me understand the stuff that goes on in my head, and ultimately he puts it into clear frameworks and organises things beautifully, whereas I'm probably the nutty professor. So from that point of view, that is brilliant. So if you want to be the best you can be, you need to put work into you. And then you get that confident mindset, you get that right attitude, you get that invincibility about you, and then investing becomes part of that journey. You build your knowledge, and then again it's empowering for you, and then you act on it.
Don't wish it was easier, wish for more skills. Jim Rohn says that. So mate, as we sign off, mate, we're going around the world.
We are. This one is Hindi, and who knows how this is going to come out.
A successful Hindi person or an unsuccessful
This is Hindi, they're all cool and together, aren't they? They seem like they've got it. Yeah. I'm about to destroy that, aren't I, in terms of how I sign off a goodbye.
Where are we going?
Hindi. It's just Hindi. Yeah, so I have no idea what we'll be saying here, but is it Fear Melenje? Fear Melenje?
Fear Melenje. Fear
Melenje? Fear? How would you...
False evidence appearing real, isn't it, Fear?
I don't
forget
know.
everything and run. Very good.
So there you go. He's got a line for everything, Bryce.
So there you go, folks. So we're about to sign off for this week. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Let us know if you want anything more like this in the future. We've enjoyed sharing a few insights. But until next week, Fear Melenje.
Yeah, I reckon.
Fear Melenje. There you go, folks. Fear Melenje. See you next week.
Fear Melenje.